This manhwa will bring you to tears. The story begins in a wheat field where someone walks while brushing their hand against the crops. It tells of a woman with dreams, a woman searching for her place in the world, moving forward without looking back. It doesn't delve much into her life since it might seem ordinary, but for her, her life is the best. In kindergarten, a little girl excitedly shouts that when she grows up, she wants to be a cloud. She claims that clouds must taste like cotton candy, and when she's hungry, she could eat a piece of her own body. She also explains that clouds can be anything: rabbits, whales, or even a bird. Not to mention, they float in the sky and can travel anywhere. That's why she wants to be a cloud, because they're in the sky too, and that way she can see her. After that moment, now in elementary school, the same girl declares that her dream is to become a trot singer. She says her dad loves listening to her sing songs of this genre. For that, she wants to be a good daughter to her father, as it was hard for him to raise her alone. Later in her life, during middle school, the girl says her dream is to own a building. She adds that she will be rich and will open an academy in that building to help children who can't learn due to poverty. With these words, she finishes her speech. Sometime later, in high school, the same girl mentions that her first choice is Korea University, and her second is Yuhua Women's University. Although she admits being worried about her grades, she wonders if everything will work out. Now in college, she says she wants to work at Gwangjin Electronics. She mentions having an interview with them the next day and emphasizes that it's the most important company, assuring that she is perfectly prepared. The man in front of her responds that everything will be fine because she is diligent. However, he also says that he will write a recommendation letter, a gesture she appreciates. Then, the man asks her name, to which she replies that her name is Yu Bora. After that, the scene changes. She is rushing while reflecting that she had set her alarm for 7 o'clock, but the device ran out of battery and didn't ring. As a result, Mr. Kim, the owner of the laundry where she was supposed to pick up her best suit, fled during the night, taking all the money. To make matters worse, her father, whom she always relies on in moments like this, didn't wake up either because he got drunk the night before. And all of this happens on the day of the job interview. On her way, she encounters 2 women peeling persimmons. One of them notices that she is Mr. Yu's daughter, and the older one comments on whether she's the pretty girl. They greet her and then ask why she's in such a hurry. One of them even suggests that she slow down because she might fall. And indeed, she trips and falls hard to the ground. The elderly woman worries and asks if she's okay, but Yu quickly jumps up, takes a deep breath, and as she resumes running, shouts that she's fine. She continues running desperately, but it's too late. She missed the bus. With an angry expression, she starts looking for a taxi. She finds one and frantically waves at the driver to stop. The man stops a bit further ahead. Seizing the opportunity, she quickly gets in and tells him to take her to Gwangjin Electronics, adding that she needs to be there by 10 o'clock sharp. The driver checks his watch and notices it's 9:40. He informs her it will take more than 30 minutes to get there. She, pleading, asks him to please go as fast as possible. Without much enthusiasm, the man agrees and starts driving. However, they soon get stuck in a traffic jam. While they are stopped in traffic, the driver continues listening to his music without any emotion. Suddenly, he glances at the woman and notices she's starting to cry. After observing her more closely, he asks if it's really important to arrive on time. Bora, through tears, responds yes, explaining that she has a job interview and overslept. He, after seeing her and analyzing the situation, asks if it's her dream to work at that company. She looks at him and after a few seconds answers yes because it's a great company and she worked hard to get this opportunity. That's when he turns to look at her, leaving her curious about what he's doing. He, also impatient with the situation, asks her to fasten her seatbelt and says it's important. Then he adds that he'll try to get there quickly. She fastens her seatbelt, and right after he activates Toretto mode. Pressing the accelerator, he speeds up quickly. Elsewhere in the city, the police were calmly in their vehicle until they noticed a taxi speeding. This alerts them, and they start chasing the taxi. Meanwhile, Bora, frightened, yells at him to wait a moment that he's going too fast. However, he doesn't listen to her, only watching the police behind him. She, already somewhat desperate, informs him that they're being chased, to which he calmly responds that it seems he's in trouble. The police order the taxi to stop, but he clearly doesn't. This makes Bora sigh deeply. Then she apologizes, saying it's all her fault. However, he responds no, that it's okay. Then he speeds up and skillfully maneuvers between the other cars. Bora, watching all this, questions what he's doing and if he's really going to ignore the police orders since they told him to stop, calling him sir. Hearing that, he replies that even though he drives a taxi, he's 27 years old. This leaves Bora confused, but he quickly explains that he's not an old man, making her blush slightly. The chase continues, and at one point they go over a speed bump, causing the car to lift off the ground before landing back heavily on the pavement. However, he doesn't stop, and after a while, announces that they've arrived, adding that they have 5 minutes to spare. He tells her to hurry and wishes her good luck in her interview. She quickly gets out of the car, thanking him. But as he watches her walk away, he comments that she forgot to pay him. Despite this, he smiles as the police approach to arrest him. Bora, on her part, rushes to her interview while the young man is handcuffed by the officers. At one point, she stops to look at him, and in that instant, they exchange glances. She reflects that her first impression is that he has a calm face, even as the police take him away. She also mentions that he reminds her of the clouds. However, she then reformulates the idea, saying he is like a cloud, revealing that she can't take her eyes off his back. After all that, we delve into the story of the young man, who had some food in front of him. He reflects that at that small table, his mother raised him alone. Because of her, he always wished to grow up as quickly as possible. However, for someone like him, the world seemed disrespectful. At another time in a field, someone was playing with balloons, and the boy watched carefully. He thought that their first meeting had been a long time ago. He watched the girl playing and wondered what she was doing. A lady commented that she was Mr. Yu's daughter and that she had grown up a lot. The woman nearby asked if Mr. Yu's wife had passed away, to which the lady replied that she had, and that she was still very young, which was a great pity. Then that woman asked if it wasn't something concerning, but the other lady responded by asking if that question was directed at her, revealing that she couldn't worry about others as she had to focus on raising her son. The boy who was watching reflected that the girl was someone in the same situation as him, and he felt a sense of affinity with her. At another moment, a man was starting the singing contest. The young man from earlier observed everything with a slight smile. After several people showcased their talent, the host commented that they had listened to many different singers, thus bringing the presentation to an end. But before concluding, a little girl burst in, shouting for them to wait a moment. The man looked at her and asked where she lived. The girl replied that she lived in Paju and that her name was Yu Bora. All of this was observed by the boy. Then the host asked what they should do, as the contest had ended, but the girl insisted it hadn't. At the same time, the drummer started playing, and the girl began to sing. This left everyone present impressed by her voice, including her father, who was there to support her. The boy who watched everything, knowing the girl was in the same situation as him, wondered how she could look so happy. Time passed, and the boy grew up. While his mother scolded him, he reflected that her hair seemed to be getting whiter. The woman was angry because her son had started working and questioned what would happen with university. He replied by asking what university they could afford given their financial situation, but before she could answer, he interrupted her to say not to worry, as he wasn't doing well with his studies. His mother looked at him closely and confessed that she had always said she would raise him well. The boy confirmed that she had, but questioned whether he could be better than he was at that moment. He added that he had many friends who couldn't even attend high school and that everything he had achieved was thanks to her. He thanked her and asked her to trust him and rest from that point onward. He smiled kindly. As time passed, the boy, now a man, noticed something while reading a message addressed to Yu Bora, congratulating her on graduating from the business administration department. He thought there was much he didn't know about her, but curiously, he wanted to support her. At some point, the young man arrived home, and his mother greeted him warmly. He noticed that she had bought rice and asked why she carried the bag alone, suggesting she could have left it for him. The woman replied that she had met Mr. Yu's daughter in front of the store, and that she had carried the sack there. She confessed that she really was a great girl. He asked if she was referring to Yu Bora, and his mother confirmed, then asked if he knew her. After that, we go back to the moment when he picked her up in his taxi. While stuck in traffic, he thought it was strange. He wondered why he was so nervous and why he was so concerned about her. As he saw her cry, he remembered a question from a school questionnaire they had asked him, if that was her dream. Then he realized he had spoken out loud, and Bora replied that yes, she had worked very hard to have that opportunity. In that brief moment of reflection, the boy confessed that it might seem trivial as he pressed the accelerator. He also confessed that he wanted to help her. Now in prison, he stared into the void, smiling, remembering her and wishing her good luck. Bora remembers when the police took him away and wonders if she should do something since he ended up like that because of her. However, thinking it over, she realizes that it has nothing to do with her, and it wasn't her who asked him to go so fast. But then she remembers that yes, she did ask him to go fast. So she puts her hand on her head and thinks about his face, besides realizing she should have asked his name. That's when someone calls for Yu Bora and Daesu. Both people stand up, and during the interview, the girl thinks she should have stopped him when the police started chasing them and wonders if he's crazy. After the interview, she keeps reflecting on why he did that for her. As she walks a little further, she suddenly se congela de repente y luego empieza a negar, mencionando que solo se vieron una vez, pero se pregunta si él se ha enamorado de ella a primera vista y concluye que eso tiene sentido. Pronto se mira en el espejo y realmente confirma que tiene sentido, acercándose a su reflejo y concluyendo que, después de todo, no está nada mal y es comprensible. Then she remembers him, starting to blush a little, and decides she's going to apologize to him first. She starts running, heading to the police station. Upon arriving, she asks why they released him so soon. The officer replies that he paid the fine. Bora asks if they could give her the address or phone number of the taxi driver. But the officer responds that he is not authorized to give out personal information. The woman wonders what she should do and admits she wants to see him again, asking how she could make it happen. The officer looks at her and asks if he owes her money. She replies no, and then he questions what kind of relationship they have, to which she responds that they don't have any relationship yet. They both exchange glances, leaving a silence in the... At home, Bora reflects on when he said he was 27 years old and not an old man. That strangely makes her smile, starting to laugh and feeling somewhat dazed. That's when someone calls for her, saying it's time to eat. Her father looks at her and notices she's dazed, starting to laugh out of nowhere, which continues throughout dinner. Then, the phone rings, and the girl answers, only to receive the news that she has been hired. Her father, hearing this, jumps for joy and admits he expected nothing less from his daughter, running to hug her for the job she got. However, the girl returns to her chair, and her father asks if he misheard, if she really got hired. Bora says yes and keeps eating. The man, somewhat worried, asks what's wrong and if it's not the job she wanted so much. That leaves her in a sea of uncertainty, only to show up at work the next day. She reflects that it was the dream job, that it would be a glorious first day at work, but she doesn't actually feel excited. That's when she sees a taxi with the same driver who had taken her that day. Without hesitation, she starts running after the vehicle, shouting for him to wait, and luckily the driver sees her, stopping immediately. This cheers her up, and she runs to catch up with him, then checks to see if he's the person she's been looking for. But in the end, she realizes he isn't, and the man asks if she's getting in. Bora says no and apologizes for what happened. She starts walking slowly, thinking to herself that he wasn't the one. Just then, another taxi drives past her, and the man she was looking for waves at her. That makes her blush, and then he asks her how the interview went. Bora could only nod, and the young man asks if she's late again, but she shakes her head. That's when he asks why she's crying, to which the poor woman replies that she's just happy. They exchange glances, and she, smiling, introduces herself as Bora. It's then that the dream of being a cloud, a trot singer, a wealthy woman, being admitted to Korea University, and getting a job at Gwangjin Electronics changed over time. But in the spring of her 24th year, surrounded by the essence of cherry blossoms, Bora realizes she has a new dream to fulfill. At some bar, Bora was with her friends having some alcohol, and then revealed that, it turns out, the guy and she live in the same neighborhood. She explains that, when he said that, he insisted on taking her to work, so since then he has been taking her from her front door to the office every day. The two friends ask her if it's free, and Bora answers no, that she obviously pays, but she can't see him on Sundays because he doesn't go to work. She misses him and thinks she couldn't stand it. One of her friends asks, and then... That's when Bora remembers when she confessed that she liked him, leaving the young man speechless at such a confession. Her friends, hearing what she did, deny that she did that, and claim that that's why studying so much can be a problem, as she lacks life experience. They explain that, although they had love at first sight, human relationships go through various stages. She blurted it out like that suddenly, and it's normal for him to react that way, as she's scaring him. However, her other friend asks what he said. Bora looks down, then answers that he said it was like a miracle that she liked him. The friend with glasses is surprised, as it really seems that if you're pretty, even if you tell him suddenly, he doesn't get scared. Then her other friend asks what's going on, if they're dating. Bora is a little confused, and the friend with glasses asks if he didn't say it was like a miracle. That means everything is clear. So she asks why she's drinking with them. Bora calmly responds that because he doesn't have a phone or a way to contact him, and he hasn't been to her house for several days. She takes another sip while her friends look at her. Later at night, while Bora returns home, she feels a little sad and remembers when she told him that she liked him. That was the moment when both of them fell silent until she asked him if he was dating anyone. The young man answered no. Then she asked him to go out with her, but he replied that no, he couldn't do that. Hearing his answer, Bora was left without reaction or words, but then asked what it was that he didn't like about her. He looked at her through the rearview mirror and, after thinking a bit, replied that there was nothing he didn't like about her. Also, it was clear that Bora was liked by everyone. Thinking that this was something natural about her, the answer left her a bit confused. But he continued explaining that no one could hate her, and for him, it was like a miracle knowing that she liked him. Bora was about to say something, but he interrupted her, saying that they were different and wouldn't get along. The atmosphere fell into silence until they finally arrived at Bora's destination. When getting out of the vehicle, she heard the young man say good morning and tell her they'd see each other tomorrow. However, Bora was somewhat angry and then approached asking how she could become a woman with whom Sayoko could get along. They exchanged glances, and in the end, he replied that she didn't need to change anything. So, in the present, Bora kicks the trash while yelling, "What the hell does she have to do?" That simple action was not isolated, as it happened in the middle of the street. Having no other choice, she starts picking up the trash she kicked. As she does it, she remembers what her friend said, that relationships go through various stages, and rethinks if maybe she acted too soon. But then she reflects that this is because she hasn't seen the kindness in his eyes. Back at home, her father tells her that he was worried and asks why she's so late. His daughter responds with another question, wanting to know why he dresses so elegantly at night and where he's going. He replies that it's good that she's home now and asks her to accompany him. So in a twist of fate, they both meet. But unfortunately, it's at Mrs. Kin's funeral, Soko's mother. At one point, Bora thinks that she didn't know, and that, despite living in the same neighborhood for more than 20 years, she had never met him. In the end, they exchanged glances, and then father and daughter began to leave. Bora's father comments that that young man must have gone through very tough times. He reveals that his mother should have seen her son get married, but she left too soon. Hearing that, Bora immediately stops and informs her father that she will be home a little later. The man is confused at first. With Sayoko now, the young man is sitting looking at his mother's photo until he hears someone ask for another bottle of soju, and someone else responds that they'll go immediately. So the young man looks at Bora, attending to the guests who came to the funeral. He watches her curiously, admiring the help she was giving. After everyone had left, both Bora and Sayoko remained seated in silence. The young man, at that moment, began to think about his mother. Finally, he looked up and turned his attention to Bora. He thanked her for what she had done that day, and mentioned that it was already very late, so it would be better for her to go home. However, Bora replied that it was fine. Despite this, the young man stayed silent for a moment until he commented that she had to work tomorrow and that he would be fine, insisting that it would be best for her to return home. Bora stood up, but only to move a bit away, thinking that perhaps he felt uncomfortable with her presence. However, the boy looked at her, stood up, and clarified that it wasn't that he felt uncomfortable. Sayoko approached her, expressing his gratitude, but still insisted that it would be best if she returned home. It was then that, in a burst of anger, Bora asked him why he kept asking her to leave. This seemed to make the young man a bit nervous, and he replied that it wasn't that, repeating that it was already very late and that her father would surely be worried if she didn't go back. At that moment, Bora shouted at him, saying she was worried about him, that she was going crazy with worry, and that she didn't know what else to do. Through tears, Bora confessed that she didn't understand him, and as she fell to the ground, she wondered why he kept insisting that she leave. Seoko watched her for a few seconds. Finally, his own tears began to roll down his face, soaking the floor. The night ended with both of them crying together. On another day, with cherry blossoms blooming in the city, Bora was walking peacefully until she heard the sound of a car. Turning around, she saw a taxi approaching her. When she looked at the driver, she recognized Seoko, who smiled at her, causing her to smile back. As time went on, they began going on date after date, enjoying moments filled with smiles and joy. Until one day, Bora decided to introduce Seoko to her friends. Each date became a memory they cherished as if it were a diamond. It was during one of those dates, in an unexpected moment, that Bora kissed him. After that, they looked at each other in silence. Then, she ran out of the place. For his part, Seoko gave a slight smile as he walked away, while Bora was in her room, radiating happiness. Then, on an unexpected day at Bora's father's house, the man received important news: the announcement of his daughter's marriage. Bora and Seoko stood before him, but the man quickly reacted with opposition. Meanwhile, Seoko was outside the house, kneeling in front of the door, waiting patiently. Inside, Bora raised her voice, questioning her father about the reason for his rejection. Amid shouting, she asked if he didn't want her to be happy, and revealed that Seoko truly made her happy. However, her father firmly replied that it wouldn't work. He explained that until that day, he didn't even know they were dating, and that, moreover, they hadn't even been together for a year. He questioned how two such immature people could think about getting married and stated that Bora was blinded by her feelings and wasn't seeing reality. Concluding that there was nothing more to discuss, he added that he didn't want to see her suffer or regret it later. He asked what kind of father would let his daughter marry, only for her to realize later that she had made a mistake. However, Bora shouted, questioning how he could know that would happen. But the man, raising his voice, declared that he had already said no and that he didn't like that boy. With no other options, Bora locked herself in her room, crying uncontrollably. Through sobs, she shouted at her father that she hated him. The man, letting out a deep sigh, went to the window. From there, he saw Seoko kneeling in front of the door. It was then that the man opened the door and, with a firm tone, asked how long he planned to stay there. He added that he wouldn't allow such madness and demanded that he leave and never return. But Seoko, after hearing those words, took a deep breath and responded resolutely. He confessed that in his entire life, he had never had a dream. However, now, he, who had once only thought about earning money to get by, was studying again because he wanted to become someone worthy of marrying Bora. He clarified that he didn't expect to be given permission at that moment, but even so, he asked what kind of man the father wanted for his daughter. He asked him to describe the kind of son-in-law he sought, assuring him that he would do everything within his power to become that man. The man looked at him intently, and after a moment of reflection, responded. He explained that the reason he was against it wasn't about his education or his job, but about the immense love he felt for his daughter. He confessed that Bora was the most precious thing to him, and that despite growing up without a mother, she had become a wonderful person of whom he couldn't be prouder. But he had known him since he was a boy, and knew they were completely different, as he would never be able to make her happy, being a solitary person. In the end, he apologized and said he wouldn't allow it. Not now. Seoko needed a lot of courage to kneel in front of the house and ask for permission. He was determined to endure, no matter what he heard. However, he obediently stepped back in the face of Bora's father's words, who saw him as a solitary person. Syoko's resignation felt to Bora like confirmation of her father's harsh words, and it broke her heart because she knew they weren't true. It was then that, on a snowy night, someone knocked on a certain person's door. At that moment, Syoko stepped out and asked who it was. Soon, he noticed it was Bora. She confessed that she had left home. The boy, in silence, thought for a few seconds and then asked her to return, explaining that if she left home like that, her father would get even. But the girl, with unstoppable determination, replied that nothing would happen because what her father wanted most was her happiness. While looking at him, she asked if he also wanted her to be happy, confessing that she was happy when she was with him. She reflected on him being a solitary person, then immediately hugged him, thinking that everything would be fine if they shared a warm embrace. That took him by surprise, even more so when they looked at each other. Bora confessed that she loved him and asked him, "Please." Syoko, with a calm gaze, looked at her, then approached and kissed her on the head. He hugged her, creating under the cold snow a fire that could never be extinguished. It was then that on January 14th, Bora and Syoko got married. They didn't hold any ceremony, they simply exchanged rings and took a photo. At Bora's father's house, the man was drinking, having found his daughter's letter in which she said she was leaving to find her happiness. In the same letter, she asked her being an inconsiderate daughter and begged him to drink in moderation. It was then that Bora spoke to her father, apologized, and acknowledged that he had been right about one thing. She suffered a lot. Love was brief, and reality was very harsh. But there was one thing her father was wrong about. She was happy enough, and never, not even once, did she regret the decision she had made. And with that, we've reached the end of this week's chapter. If you made it all the way to the end, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this chapter in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so our community can keep growing and we can reach more fans like you. See you in the next video. In the meantime, if you're from the near future, I'll leave you the next chapter and a comic you're sure to enjoy. Thank you for being part of this adventure.